Who are the best waiver wire pickups across positions for fantasy football in week 6? And what do we think of that crazy Raiders Chiefs game on Monday night? It's time to break it down right here, right now, as we begin another edition of Pickup Tuesday, only on Locked On Fantasy Football.
Are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for sportingnews.com. We already have the Week 6 picks against the spread there that you can check out, as well as my power rankings. Tuesday afternoons, you can check out my Start sitcom. We get it up there early for you. We change it throughout the week if new information comes along, and we had a pretty good week there last week, so we'll break things down for you for Week 6. Starting on Wednesday, looking at the quarterback and running back ranking, start, sit, advice. Then we'll turn to wide receivers, tight ends, and defenses there on Thursday. But first, we got to get the business of the waiver wire out of the way. So this is going to help you decide who you want to target there, whether you're using a waiver priority system or using a free agent acquisition budget or FAB to pick up your players. So we're going to get into that there. There is one particular standout pickup this week that you should really want to go after hard. It's the biggest probably waiver wire pickup so far this season if he's available in your league. So we'll get into that and we'll reveal who that is here, coming off a big injury, creating some opportunity there for this player. Before we do that, I got to tell you thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. We're free and available to you on all platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, quick recap there. The Chiefs hold off the Raiders 30-29. If you had Davante Adams or Travis Kelce, or you had Travis Kelce going up against Davante Adams trying to win a matchup, you're very happy. So the results were pretty much centered around two players there. You didn't get a lot from the Chiefs running game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire kind of went down. Josh Jacobs did score a touchdown for you, so he stayed hot here, but the Raiders do have a bye this week. Darren Waller, unfortunately, the bummer, he hurt his hamstring early. He disappeared from the game. Hunter Renfrow not really involved in his return from a concussion. So it was basically the Davante Adams and Josh Jacobs show there with Derek Carr putting up the good numbers that he usually does with those two long bombs there that he completed to Adams and a lot of field goals from Daniel Carlson. On the other side, and the Chiefs kind of were methodical about moving the ball downfield. Some pretty good yardage days for Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Mecole Hardman, but they involved Sky Moore a little bit. Juju Smith-Schuster was a bit up and down. MVS had a drop, so still work in progress with these other wide receivers. So what do? Throw to Travis Kelce 4 times in the red zone, 4 short TDs. He didn't really need to do all that much else in the game. In other parts of the field, he was a dominant force in the red zone. So Travis Kelce paying off in every which way as a first-round fantasy football pick. Again, standing out with Mark Andrews as the clear dominant tight ends, except for one guy that popped up here that's not really a tight end. We'll get into him. He's also a hot pickup this week. But, yeah, 30-29, one of those games here. The Chiefs grind it through it and win, hold off the Raiders late on their last gasp field goal drive. So good production if you had Kelce and Adams and Jacobs and Carr. And Mahomes, of course, and Mahomes getting the 4 scores. He gets credit for all of those as well. But everything else was kind of disappointing in this game for sure, even though it well went over the total as expected there with the 59 points in the game. All right, now it's time to turn our attention. We're going to start with the running backs and tight ends because they're the hot pickups this week. Then we'll turn our attention to wide receivers and close the show today with our waiver wire advice, looking at the quarterbacks and streaming defenses that you can consider here. We already have bye weeks that have arrived. That's true. We have the Lions and Texans and Raiders. So a lot of good players there that are off this week. And you also have the Titans off. So you have a lot of top running backs in fantasy. Jacobs, Dameon Pierce, DeAndre Swift, and we know he was missing time already, but no Jamal Williams this week. And of course, Derrick Henry is out. So we're looking for as much help on the waiver wire as possible to maybe fill out RB2 this week. That brings us to our pickup of the week. That is Ken Walker. You want to call him Kenneth Walker III, whatever you want to call him. He's RB1 for the Seahawks right now. Rashaad Penny, we knew this was a danger with Rashaad Penny, that he could have another catastrophic injury. It happens here with a fractured tibia against the Saints. What did Ken Walker do? Come in right away, score a long touchdown. Looked very impressive. Got good 3-down work here. They took him out of the second round from Michigan State. Big year for the Spartans last season. They really missed him in their offense this year. So that's how big Walker was with his breakout season in East Lansing last year. And now he is right there on the verge of breaking out. We know Breece Hall has delivered as a rookie here early in the season, as well as Dameon Pierce. So now it's Ken Walker's turn to answer them here with a feature role for the Seahawks. And the Seahawks have been playing very good offense. So we thought it was going to be, what are we going to get from the passing game? Is it going to really support a running back? Is this offensive line going to hold up? All those things are happening here for Seattle. So Ken Walker in a really good situation, steps into a pretty nice matchup immediately against the Cardinals there at home this week. So Ken Walker, again, the Seahawks offense operating a high level. We'll get more into attaching ourselves to them in fantasy a little bit more than we expected here when we talk about quarterbacks in our final segment here for Pickup Tuesday or waiver wire advice. But Walker, go after him hard. He's clearly a guy that you want to get in every size league, 10-team, 12-team, 14-team, standard, half-point, full. And if you've got your money and you got some good money left in your fab, go for it. I mean, it's starting to be near midseason. Go for a big-time pickup. We haven't had any potential league winners pop up like this that are so direct where you don't have to wait for anything. So if Walker, people have been sleeping in your league, he's still out there in a lot of shallow leagues just because nobody want to attach himself to Penny much. Here's your opportunity here to go grab Ken Walker there this week. Now, another rookie that you can look at is Brian Robinson Jr. He got a little bit more run. They play the Bears this week, so that's an opportunity maybe to get going. The Bears' run defense is not very strong. Actually, they've played a little bit better than expected against the pass, even though their secondary is a little bit weak. So that's an opportunity. I think he's going to get more and more shots here. Antonio Gibson kind of fading this offense. They also got Jonathan Williams hurt. So this is a good opportunity for Brian Robinson to be kind of lead power back there, J.D. McKissick in that change of pace role. But really looking at B-Rob to be very special here, coming back from that tough injury with gunshots and all that. We're happy he's okay, and we're happy that he's healthy and be able to play here. And they loved him. He's an Alabama product, so we know the power backs and their pedigree there from the Crimson Tide. So that's good as well. So Brian Robinson Jr., he may not be as high profile. And again, he didn't have an auspicious start, mainly because the usage was a little bit questionable by the Commanders. But if he's out there, chance to strike. Now, this is a bit underrated one, and this is someone I have higher than maybe other people, is Kenneth Gainwell. Though this is a speculation move there. Same thing with Ken Walker behind Rashaad Penny. I mean, Miles Sanders is up and down. Gainwell is being involved, and he's usable in some matchups. The Cowboys matchup isn't great this week, but there are some spots where Gainwell can be used a little bit more and more, and he's a good cheap handcuff there if you've got Sanders. So really, Gainwell is gaining well in the situation. And again, we overhyped him a bit as a rookie, but second-year players maybe a little bit learned a little more. And then Boston Scott has been down as well. So Gainwell's not far away from having a significant role here for the Eagles. Should Sanders be a bit up and down and Sanders get hurt, which definitely are possibilities here this season. Now, Mike Boone may not be out there, but after the injury to Javonte Williams, but if he is, think about it there. People might be just saying, okay, Melvin Gordon's the guy, but Boone looked really impressive with the juice. They get the Chargers this week, who are really weak against the run. I think might see the Broncos go back to basics. We could also look at Latavius Murray in deeper leagues. And Latavius is a super sub. We saw it last year with Baltimore. We saw it again with New Orleans this year. We've seen it in the past with the Saints and Vikings. So, and Raiders going back in the day to his early days. But Latavius Murray is just a pro's pro. He's an older back, but not a lot of mileage there. And he just gets the yards that are there. So they might lean on that a little bit more with Russell Wilson struggling and the passing game having some issues with left tackle out. Now, Eno Benjamin, I want to put up a little bit higher. He would move right behind Ken Walker in that same game against the Cardinal Seahawks, that matchup. Should we know about James Conner? The interesting thing, it wasn't just James Conner. You also had Darrell Williams and Jonathan Ward hurt in that game. So might have three running backs on the shelf here. They said he would be fine. That's James Conner, but we don't totally trust Cliff Kingsbury, and Conner's been yo-yoing back in and out of the lineup with different injuries. So Eno Benjamin looked pretty good. They can't deny that he bursted well against the Eagles. So there's an opportunity here if this backfield, all those injuries linger here, that Benjamin could have a key role here this week. So we'll watch that. We're going to bump him up high. So let's track that. But I say if you want somebody more direct, I think you look at Benjamin. If you're looking for someone with some upside potentially, but may not play this week, I look at Robinson and Gainwell and Latavius Murray just to attach myself if Melvin Gordon has more fumbling or Boone is a little bit limited there as Murray gets indoctrinated into the offense. You also have Rashad White. I know it was a big week for Leonard Fournette, but it's a good time to go after Rashad White. If you're a Fournette manager especially, to make sure you lock him up. I made a small trade to get Rashad White. I actually traded Tyler Algier in a league just to speculate, and I just wanted to have my insurance for later. Fournette had been killing it, so I'm happy with Fournette. I'm also happy having White behind him. Now, Joshua Kelly is an interesting case here at running back. What do you do with him? I mean, he's actually come on pretty strong here. They kind of phased Sonny Michel out. We haven't seen Larry Roundtree at all being involved in what they're trying to do here. So I look at Joshua Kelly. I think this is what they took him for a couple of years ago, to kind of be that complement back to Austin Eckler. It took him a while. He had some fumbling issues. You still had Justin Jackson, the more reliable veteran there. But Kelly looked pretty impressive with his work there to support Eckler. And this Chargers team, are they going to become a running team? We'll see. I think they're still a passing team, but they have to adjust a little bit with Keenan Allen out. They're not as explosive. Joshua Palmer was also banged up last week. So Kelly, I think, might have a key role. Maybe he's displaced Sonny Michel here and maybe some goal line looks. If you're desperate here, running back, the matchups are not bad. The Broncos' numbers are good against the run, but we saw Dion Jackson and Philip Lindsay have some work succeed against them last week, minus a touchdown there for the Colts. So Kelly, if Austin Eckler is going to be this rocking it and they're going to get some leads, that's going to be good for Kelly. Now, what do you do with the Falcons' backfield? You have Tyler Algier, you have Caleb Huntley, and then you had weird development there where Damian Williams could return. You had another player there with Williams do some damage there for the Falcons. So when you look at that, it's pretty crowded, but you could speculate a little bit. Cordell Patterson's still out a few more weeks here, but the thing about the Falcons, however, it's another tough matchup this week. They had the Buccaneers, and now they get the 49ers. Yeah. So I'm not too interested in going after the Falcons' backfield. Now, in the same game this week for the 49ers, a former Falcon has popped back up on the radar, Tevin Coleman. Now, I guess the 49ers wanted a little bit more veteran insurance because their other option there behind Jeff Wilson Jr. filling in for Elijah Mitchell was Jordan Mason, the undrafted rookie. So you had him. Tyrion Davis-Price has been there on the shelf. So Coleman's addition there as a backup suggests that the 49ers are not feeling high on those young backs coming back and being effective anytime soon, especially the way Wilson has just carried this role and played very well. So looking for a little bit of compliment to take some pressure off Wilson. Coleman obviously knows Shanahan's system from being in 49ers land as well as with the Falcons when he was killing it with Devonta Freeman there in a previous life in a zone blocking scheme. So Coleman knows the rushing attack, and that's why he was picked up off the street here, and it's been pretty effective. Now, Jerick McKinnon, Isaiah Pacheco, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a little bit frustrating that CH didn't do all that much against the Raiders. He was just rolling here. Pacheco's been the power back, but Jerick McKinnon kind of combines both of their elements, and he's had some really good run of late. I thought he looked excellent there. He had that one power run where they couldn't pull him down. The Raiders, it was key first down. He looked a little spry, active. Remember, this guy is a very versatile back. He was an explosive guy at one point for the Vikings. I thought he was going to be the guy. Then he had those major knee injuries with the 49ers. They thought he was going to be the guy as well. So he actually had a good track record in the passing game against the Bills, had a decent playoff game against them. So maybe McKinnon is deployed as a weapon again here. Because, again, he's a little bit tough for those linebackers. They're pretty decent. I think Edwards-Helaire and Pacheco are a little bit slower. I think McKinnon's speed could help here with that offense. So if you're looking for a cheap plug-and-play this week, McKinnon might be the guy, especially in a PPR league. Catch some passes. Hopefully some dump-offs will be there as the Bills play zone defense, and it should be a high-scoring affair. And there's a chance that the Chiefs could be in a negative game script this week. Now, you can look at Dion Jackson and Philip Lindsay, but there's a lot of variables there that are concerning because Naeem Hines, he could return from a concussion with a mini bye, that extended period of time to return. We'll see about that. And we also have Jonathan Taylor, that he was close to playing last week in the ankle injury. He's had extra time to rest now. Keep in mind, So is that a full 2 weeks there before the game against the Jaguars? So couldn't be much ado about nothing, and it's back to Jonathan Taylor having a big role. And if Hines is concussed, then you could see maybe just a sprinkling of touches for Jackson and Lindsey, and Philip or John Taylor could have his best game of the season, fully rested there to run on the Jaguars, who are starting to show some cracks against the run. So those are the running backs that you can look at on the waiver wire across varying degrees. Let's go to tight end, and really this is a running back, but he's listed as a tight end, so we're going to roll with it. Taysom Hill, massive game there, outrushed Alvin Kamara, had the 2 scores. Or the ground had the passing score as well to the real tight end for the Saints, Adam Troutman. But Taysom Hill's on the radar. Tight end has been such a mess so far this season behind Kelsey and Andrews that Taysom Hill warrants our attention. And the thing that is happening with the Saints is they're going to have to morph their offense a little bit more than expected because you don't have James Winston. Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry missed last week. Chris Olave is in the concussion protocol. Alvin Kamara in the running game came alive. So, again, the Saints might have to do that a little bit more. That's, I think, their only chance to stay in the game against the Bengals this week with limited firepower with the former Bengal Andy Dalton at QB. So, Hill should get a little bit more run. It's just not going to be a matchup as juicy as that Seahawks game. Again, the Bengals can contain them a little bit. The game script could also fall out of favor where you can't get the consistent touches. So, something to watch there. It wouldn't surprise me if Hill crashed down to earth, but I still think he's going to get some significant touches. If all tight ends are touchdown dependent, Hill has a good chance to score a touchdown as anyone else because they use him well in the red zone. So keep that in mind here, and that's what you're going for. But again, I don't expect him to explode like that again this season. I think it's a product of that Seahawks matchup being excellent. Hayden Hurst has been more involved for the Bengals as they've been zone defense here. The Saints are decent against the tight end overall. They've had a good track record against that position, but Hurst getting a little bit more run. I think actually Jamar Chase could get a little bit going this week, but if T. Higgins misses some time, they need Hurst behind Chase and Tyler Boyd to have a key role there. So someone to watch there. Hurst has been rather productive. Evan Ingram coming on for the Jaguars, being a little bit more valuable. We saw with Marvin Jones Jr., a little bit diversification of the pass game. Didn't work out for Trevor Lawrence with a win, but Christian Kirk and Zay Jones have been the guys, but now they've been involving others. Ingram is not a touchdown guy necessarily in this offense. They tend to run it there in the red zone there and have Christian Kirk to do that. So Ingram is going to be based on a little bit of volume. It's going to be a bit week to week, but they're playing the Colts this week, who can give up some numbers to the tight end without Shaquille Leonard. Here we'll see if he can return the concussion. Cade Otton, you had Cameron Brate have that scary concussion there a couple weeks ago against the Chiefs. He missed the game against the Falcons. This week they get the Steelers. Otton getting a little bit more comfortable with Tom Brady. That's why they drafted him. With Rob Gronkowski retiring, someone you watch there. Another rookie to maybe spark this Broncos offense, Greg Dolce, should be on his way back there. They need this hybrid player to kind of be their number 3 here to help with no Tim Patrick behind Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. All right, so those are the options. I mean, Taysom Hill, I wouldn't go as nuts with Hill way I would go with Walker, but Hayden Hurst and Evan Ingram can be some starting options, especially this bye week. There's not a lot there you're going to miss. So Waller's got the hamstring injury. Hopefully he'll be fine after the bye. But the Texans, Titans, you weren't using anyone from there. The Austin Hoopers and O.J. Howards of the world, you weren't using them in football. But you do have T.J. Hawkinson off this week. So some options there to explore. And we'll watch Dolce. He may not play this week. But I do like Otton as a sneaky play should we have Brate miss another game here for Tampa. All right, there's your in-depth look at your waiver wire for running backs and tight ends here for week number 6. Now we will get into wide receivers. We got a lot of those to talk about. We'll give them their own segment here in part 2, and then we'll look at the quarterbacks and streaming defenses again to finish the show. Fall is chaos in your pants. You're overheating 1 second and freezing the next. To be ready for anything, you need underwear that can handle everything. It's time for Tommy John underwear. Tommy John underwear, you're that much more comfortable, so you can do everything better. Name a problem with other underwear, and Tommy John solved it. Tommy John's breathable, lightweight fabric has 4 times the stretch of competing brands. They come with a no wedgie guarantee, thanks to a non-rolling waistband and legs that never ride up. Plus, they feature a horizontal, quick-draw fly. The hammock pouch support stops the awkward swing and slap, giving everyone something to be grateful for. With more than 17 million pairs sold, people love Tommy John underwear. That's why Tommy John doesn't have customers. They have fanatics. And it's great. I've bought some Tommy John underwear. It's really comfortable, and you can take advantage of that as well. Plus, everything back with Tommy John's best pair you'll ever wear, or it's free guarantee. All you have to do to get in on Tommy John right now is to go to TommyJohn.com/lockedon. right now for 20% off your first order. That's 20% off at TommyJohn.com/locked-on. TommyJohn.com/locked-on. See site for details there. All right. Again, thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Make sure you check out NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL. Locked On's local experts give you the inside scoop on the 5 biggest games of the NFL weekend, including Sunday and Monday Night Football, plus betting advice from the field's leading experts, BetOnline. Follow NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts, much like Locked On Fantasy Football. It's time to continue the show here and look at our wide receiver waiver wire here. So let's look at the top of it. It is Jacoby Myers. Now, things have lined up pretty well. Devontae Parker's kind of faded. Nelson Aguilar has just been a guy. You also have the Kendrick Bourne in the doghouse. They don't have much more. Tyquan Thornton, the rookie, still getting his feet wet after coming back. So Jacoby Myers has been very productive this season. He seems to have very good chemistry with Bailey, Zappi, maybe even better than he had with Mac Jones. So we hope Zappi's in there for the Browns matchup this week. And Denzel Ward, that secondary, not playing all that well here for Cleveland. So good opportunity for Jacoby Myers. They're working him inside. They're working him outside. He's been very active here. So Jacoby Myers used to be known as the guy, hey, he's not exciting to play. I guess we're going to get decent wide receiver, 3 half-point, full-point PPR production. All of a sudden, he's a guy that can give you 100 yards receiving, which he did last week against the Leos, the Lions at home, as well as a touchdown. So he was a guy that was known for not scoring. So all of a sudden, when you can get that 100-yard potential and a touchdown potential, you can do a lot worse than a wide receiver 3 target. And I think people have just been writing off the Patriots passing game quite a bit. We did see Kendrick Bourne end up kind of as a wide receiver 3 last year. So again, Myers has kind of taken over as that number 1 real target here out of necessity for New England. All right. David Pierce is off this week, but Alec Pierce is another rookie who's playing, and he's in that Jaguars game, and he looked outstanding. He's actually looked great for 2 weeks since coming back from the concussion here against the Broncos. He's getting high volume there from one Matt Ryan. He's starting to feel the chemistry with him, maybe as much with Michael Pittman Jr. So I love Alec Pierce this week. Jaguars secondary is a little bit limited here in general with Tyson Campbell and some of the other guys they have there, Shaquille Griffin. So I think you look at the situation with Alec Pierce, a really good spot here at home to keep it going, playing with Matt Ryan. Michael Gallup maybe warms up a little bit more, maybe get closer to that Dak Prescott return. I don't know if you can play him against the Eagles, a pretty tough matchup. They're on the outside potentially if he sees Darius Slay or James Bradbury. So can't play Michael Gallup this week, but maybe a stash there to have some upside with Dak Prescott. Rondale Moore, he's going to have short-term value, but you could use him this week against the Seahawks if you need him here. Greg Dortch being phased out a little bit with Moore back. He looked pretty good the last 2 weeks. You also have no DeAndre Hopkins for 1 more week. So keep that in mind. It's going to change here when you have Marquise Brown and Hopkins and Zach Ertz there. Rondale Moore's role, but they like him. They wanted to showcase him a little bit more. That's what you're seeing. Now, Isaiah Mackenzie and Khalil Shakir, we're going to watch that situation. Shakir definitely has some upside there, filling in for Mackenzie when he was out with the concussion there, and he was the main third receiver with Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. We'll see if Mackenzie can return from a concussion. We know that Jamison Crowder is not returning. I do love Shakir a lot. He's a good rookie from Boise State. I thought he was going to be more of a next-year guy, but he has handled big slot pretty well there between Davis and Diggs, so we'll see about how that plays out. But looking at the situation, Mackenzie returns, I think they'll indoctrinate him more in the offense, but I think it could be more of a Mackenzie-Shakir split, making neither of them as appealing there as a third receiver in Buffalo. We'll also watch if Dawson Knox returns, because that would be another mouth to feed in this passing game. But it is a pass-happy team, so the running backs are not becoming a factor to take away from the targets. Speaking of Davis, we talked about Mackenzie and Shakir playing off Davis. Well, how about the other Davis in the AFC East, Corey Davis? He's looked pretty good here. I think he's still the target that Zach Wilson trusts the most there. It's unfortunate because I think Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson, the rookie first rounder, have way more talent, but I think Joe Flacco was a little bit better connected with those guys. So can't expect a lot from the Jets passing game at this very moment, but that's someone to look at there. Now, you're looking elsewhere. I mean, it's been tough. You look at Jameson Williams, he might be back here after the bye, so you can't use him this week. But definitely put him on the radar. DJ Chark still hurting here. Amon-Ra St. Brown needs some help. Josh Reynolds has been pretty pedestrian, so watch out for Jameson Williams. you want to attach yourself to the Chiefs, hope for some numbers there. Yeah, Marquez Valdez-Scantling looked better than Hardman and Smith-Schuster for the Chiefs, so he could have a bigger role against the Chiefs. This Bills secondary, it's tough, but you could also see Sky Moore having a bigger role because he's a guy after the catch can create something happen. So something to watch out there. You also have Darius Slaton here, and remember Dana Jones and him had some good chemistry as rookies. Slaton's being heated up again with it's a lot there, and a lot of health at wide receiver. Sterling Shepard down for the season. Wanda Robinson and Kadarius Toney and Kenny Galladay all been hurting. Davis Sills has just been a guy here. So look at Darius Slaton maybe having a little bit more run. It's a tougher matchup this week. And so now zone-adjusted defense of the Ravens, very talented secondary there this week. Donnie Brown, I think he's a one-week plug-and-play. I think there's a chance that Jahan Dotson will return here in week 7 when he can. But Donnie Brown was basically a seamless fill-in. I mean, you had Carson Wentz throw the 2 touchdown passes to him. So they just went to Miami as the big play threat there, playing off Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel, much to the chagrin of McLaurin and Samuel users last week. So look at that there with Diami Brown. Marvin Jones back in surface. I wouldn't say it's very consistent. We just saw Zay Jones, the guy, and Christian Kirk was just a couple weeks ago. But the matchup is not terrible against the Colts this week, but it's hard to play him. And Randall Cobb, I think he's more week to week here, but I think he's going to be involved. The Packers are going to open up the pass game a little bit more, probably against the Jets here this week at home. So there's your wide receivers that we're going to look at here on the waiver wire in that order. So Myers and Pierce, definitely the top 2 targets at that position. And Rondell Moore, maybe a 1-week play there, and we'll see how it plays out between Mackenzie and Shakir in Buffalo. So we still have to talk about the quarterbacks and streaming defenses that you can check out here for your fantasy football teams waiver wire pickups in week 6. We'll do that in our final segment. Before we do that, I got to tell you about BetOnline here. And really, it's exciting because NFL season is in full swing. We're almost near the midway point. We've seen a lot of the action. We're going to get the NBA soon, tipping off just around the corner. NHL is back as well. MLB playoffs. It's all exciting here. We're going to have the sports equinox here where everything is going on at the same time. BetOnline.net is your number one source for football betting information of the season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles, analysis on every game you can find. And always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, live betting, and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in all your favorite games, events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to BetOnline.net or use a mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, let us look at the quarterback and defense waiver wire. Quarterback, we're thinking a little bit streaming, a little bit of a long-term. Defense, more 1-week plays only. We've got some defense that you wouldn't use. There are the Titans, Raiders, and Texans and Lions that are on buys this week, so you shouldn't be too tough there. We'll get to that in a moment. At quarterback, Geno Smith. At this point, let's stop resisting. Geno Smith should be on all rosters here, even 10-team leaguers. He is a QB 10, so he is a QB 1. The Seahawks offense, look, we attached Russell Wilson as a QB 1 to it, right? He was getting the ball to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Geno Smith has been outstanding. He just fits really well in this offense. He knows it backward and forward here, absorbed it great. He's playing well, distributing the ball. The Seahawks defense stinks, and that also helps. You're going to have to score a lot of points here every week to have a shot to win. So Geno's going to put the ball up in the air. Metcalf and Lockett have been balling. The tight ends have been effective. They're using the backs well out of the backfield. So Geno Smith is not fluky, folks. Shane Waldron, he's fit well in that system. He was there for last year, and he's just playing within the system. And sometimes systems are enough to get the production here that we're looking for in fantasy football. So Geno Smith, bringing it pretty well, should be managed in all leagues. Now, Carson Wentz, look, I get his coach is throwing him under the bus, and he was disappointing through the interception with a chance to win the game last week in the red zone. But as long as Carson Wentz is starting, there's some numbers to be had there. You have, again, the weapons are good with McLaurin and Samuel, and you saw that Brown and Dotson can help fill in there. Logan Thomas did miss last week, but he's a weapon that can be used. I just don't like Carson Wentz this week. The Bears on the road, it's a tough situation there. The weather could be a factor already. Yeah, it's Chicago in October. It gets tricky there. It's cold, and the ball doesn't fly out as well. And Wentz maybe called out and respond here, but I just don't love the matchup this week. I think it's okay. You can do a little bit better. So Wentz is still a more matchup-based guy, where Geno Smith really impressed me against the Saints. He's got those good weapons again. If we like Metcalf and Lockett in a particular matchup, you got like Geno Smith, where Wentz, I mean, we know McLaurin and Samuel are a little bit up and down there. So something to watch, but I have one league, deep league, where I lost Trey Lance. I'm going to start Geno Smith over Wentz this week. So like it if you've got Derek Carr, really Jared Goff and Derek Carr might be the only quarterbacks you would think about. And you're probably down there streaming. If you're playing one of those guys, then you can look at Smith this week over Wentz. Now, Justin Fields in the same game against Wentz, it hasn't been great. Fields is not running and taking off and scoring. They're not exactly lighting up the scoreboard, but the Commanders' defense is so bad that this could be a get-well game for Justin Fields. So something to look at there if you're desperate without Carr or Goff and you want to go that way. Fields is not terrible. Look, if it's Wentz versus Fields, it's pretty close for me this week. Because Fields has got the running ability. The Commanders' defense is bad. I think Darnell Mooney and the receivers will warm up a little bit more. So love that here. Fields is streaming, and I think he's going to have a little bit more upside as we go forward. I think the Bears are starting to unlock some things with this Luke Gentry offense. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo, he's not juicy. He has a high floor, but pretty low ceiling here. Getting the 2 touchdowns is difficult because this team, the 49ers, can run pretty well. They're probably going to run and hide away from the Falcons just like they did against the Panthers. But what did Jimmy G do? He dropped a couple touchdown passes there last week. So 215-2 is what we're looking for Jimmy, and that's doable against that Atlanta defense for sure there. If the 49ers are humming along, there's always shot. I think George Kittle finds the end zone this week and Debo, so that's all you need. You need just a couple of those guys to come through, and I think that's potentially it for Jimmy G streaming this week. Daniel Jones has actually had some pretty good finishes. The problem is he's very run-dependent and score-dependent for his numbers here. It is the Ravens this week, so I would avoid him, but not a bad guy to have on your bench for a later bye week. Jameis Winston will see if he can return. It was not close last week there for the Saints. He has a little bit of upside. If they do get to play the Bengals, I think that's a pretty high volume game for Winston. You might open it up. But the problem is we talked about it with Thomas and Olave, and now Jarvis Landry on the shelf. It's really hard to go there with Winston. Now, Zach Wilson, we talked about. We like his upside a little bit if you're going in a deeper league. 2 QB, I think he needs to be managed. He's always got a shot for rushing touchdowns, and he's probably going to have some high volume opposite Aaron Rodgers and the Packers this week. Same thing with Kenny Pickett, high volume with Tom Brady and the Buccaneers on the other side this week. So these are volume-based young quarterback plays. So there's some definite options there on the waiver wire to stream here. If you're playing the streaming game or we're relying on Carr, you got some options to fill in for 1 week in fantasy in week 6. All right, now let's look at the streaming defenses. The Patriots, I said, go after the Patriots hard. I also like the Chiefs, and we had some mixed results there. Did a few sacks, but not enough turnovers there. But the Patriots, I thought, had a chance to dominate the Lions. I didn't expect it was going to be that good, not allowing a point, getting after it. So the Patriots were outstanding last week as a defense, and they're going to keep it up. The Browns are too one-dimensional. If the Patriots can contain the running game, they know Jacoby Brissett and his weaknesses there from being a former Patriot. Keep that in mind there. So Bill Belichick is going to be aware of that, study the notes there, and give him some fits this week. So, and they'll probably just lock in Amari Cooper, take him out of the game with Jack Jones. So, yeah, this Patriots defense is going to come to play. They'll have some trouble with Nick Chubb, but in the end, they're going to force Jacoby Brissett to put the ball up in the air. That's going to create some potential for sacks and turnovers for Matthew Judon, Jones, and company. The Chargers are not a bad play. I know they lost Joey Bosa. They don't have Kenneth Murray. They're a little bit down here. And they're facing the Broncos, who could get warm at any time, but they're in prime time at home. Brandon Staley's team playing pretty well here, holding up without our key pieces. So we're not surprising the Chargers went off on the Broncos there. Primetime emotional bump there for sure at home for the Chargers on Monday Night Football. Thursday Night Football, Bears or Commanders there. The Commanders are a bit of a stretch here. They've just been awful. You're hoping that Justin Fields makes mistakes, but they're just not that good enough. So if I'm going to go with the streaming defense, I look at the Bears here this week. I think the Giants-Ravens game is also kind of sneaky, but the Bears at home have been playing better defense. They've wreaked some havoc here against weaker quarterbacks. The offensive line of the Commanders is not very good, so some opportunities for sacks there. So I do like the Bears as a streaming defense for you this week. I know they're pretty weak in run defense. They're the worst run defense in the league, but if they can get a bit of a lead here and tee off, that'll be great. So keep that in mind. They're going to kind of bounce into a 4 or 5 sacks potentially in this game easily. So keep that in mind. I also don't expect it to be a low-scoring game. The number is 30.5, so that's boding well there, depending on your scoring format for defense to consider the Bears this week. Again, home emotional. I prefer to play those type of defenses versus the ones on the road in those same matchups. All right. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Now, our next episode, we're going to focus on the quarterback and running back rankings there. So we'll see what we want to do with these guys that we mentioned on the waiver wire there if we plug them into our lineup. So we'll look at that. Quarterback and running back rankings, as well as start set advice for those fringe players. Now, make your second listen to the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give you the expert NFL analysis you need in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. For Locked On Fantasy Football, this is Vinnie Iyer. Have a great Tuesday. Good luck on all your waiver wire claims and making those there today and tomorrow. And then we'll catch you tomorrow to start breaking down week number 6 and the matchups.